welcome back. This is Roy Doyle with Arkansas Showcase Radio.com show, and we're bringing you another celebrity interview. And today we really have a treat for you. This is Peter Noone coming to you, the lead man for, or otherwise known as Herman, with Herman's Hermits, a huge band that was just dominating the charts back in the 60s. So stay tuned. Coming right up after this, you'll see Peter Noone, a great individual with Herman's Hermits. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. Peter, what's up, man?
How's it going?
Oh, it's going.
Well, perhaps I should say, how y'all doing?
You know the South. A lot of your tours are down here in the South. This is home to you.
I know. I do love it. I feel like it's home. I like it when there's nice people.
Well, I tell you, I remember when I was a kid, and all us little redneck kids were out in the sticks and everything, listening to Henry VIII and using our best British accents. And Peter, that was an ugly sight. That was a real ugly sight.
Yeah.
Little kid with rednecks doing British accents.
It's when it goes H-E-N-R-Y.
All right. Well, how are you doing, good sir? You're looking good, looking fit.
I'm feeling good. Getting ready to go back to work. We've had a few days off. We're going back to Georgia. And then we're going up to Iowa, Clear Lake, Iowa.
Okay.
The Surf Ballroom. And then we're going back to Alabama. And then we're going round and round and round. It's good fun. It's good. It's like the olden days. It's like busy and fun audiences. And
see, that's what we were talking about right before you came on. I am exhausted just looking at your schedule. So I can't imagine actually having your schedule.
You know, it's a sickness, I think, but I do enjoy my job, and it's all I can do. You know, I mean, people say, well, why don't you retire? I go, well, what would I do? You know, because all I do is play music and sing songs.
Well, before we ask a couple of questions, I do have a little personal beef with you here. I need to figure out where to send my therapy bill, you know, for you to pay, of course, because I was talking with my mother and she was asking who we're talking to this week. And I mentioned, you know, we got Herman's Hermits on there, Mr. Peter himself, and my mom, the only other person that I think gave birth as a virgin, innocent little mother. She goes, oh, that Peter Noone, man, he really got my engine started. I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot think about that ever again. Yeah. So thanks a lot. Now I've got the
that's good.
You revving my mom's engines up.
Good for her.
That. But that's all right. I'll just call you Dad, and we can go from there.
But I mean,
all right.
You've never been anything but in the business of, you was in soap operas before. Then you went into.
You know, I'm a persistent little person. So if I'm not working, I go looking for work. That makes sense. You know, I'm from this. I'm from a working class world where if you're not working, you feel like you're being lazy. You know, I've never bought that armchair. You know,
oh my God.
To sit in for a week.
I have 3 of them.
No,
just not my type. You know, it's some people think it's like a psychological disorder, but it is. It was always my hobby. When I was a kid, my hobby was music and laughter and things like that. You know, that was my hobby. And now my hobby, when I was about 15, while I was doing my hobby with my friends, you know, we were going out and singing songs and playing music. We started to get paid for it. And everyone's dream is to have a hobby that you can earn a living doing.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. You know.
So how do you guys form Herman's Hermits?
You know, it was from a time where probably was the same in Tennessee, but it was a time where England's a very small country, and there were lots and lots of people all doing the same thing at the same time, which was playing guitar and listening to American rock and roll music. And that's what we were doing, playing guitar or piano. I like Jerry Lee Lewis, so I like the piano. And what happened was everybody was sort of doing that. And when you got together with your friends, one of the things that you would do sometimes is you'd actually play somebody else's record and all listen to it. And then somebody would show up with a guitar and say, hey, look, I know some of the chords to that. And then bit by bit, that turns into, a bunch of guys playing music. And then you find a drummer. And once you get a drummer, you can go and play at school gigs and, local youth clubs. We started out playing in almost everywhere that we played in, we could walk to from our houses because, it was we didn't have any transportation. So, a few of the dates, me and Carl Green, the bass player, would go on our bikes. But we were sophisticated, and we would hide our bikes so that no one knew we came on our bikes. And the drummer was another option. He had to go on a double-decker bus. No. And there were single-decker buses and double-decker buses, but he couldn't get on the single-decker bus because on the double-decker you could put the drums underneath the stairs. And he would show up and people were very kind. People would help, the bus conductor would wait while he got his drums on and somebody would help him get his drums off.
That's awesome.
And he'd be stood there now and he's got more than one piece of equipment and he would have to carry a bit at a time, he'd go 100 feet and then go back and get the other one and bring it all. It was kind of a big adventure, just to work was, but all the time people were laughing. It's an interesting thing. The world was not a great place at that time. Parents were poor. I mean, poor, not poor, but, our parents were poor. If, I hear the story, I never noticed it, but I heard the story that if we weren't careful on Thursday, we wouldn't get to eat. Oh, because payday was Thursday and loads of kids that I know, and I still know, we grew up on condensed milk sandwiches. That was a big deal.
What the hell is that?
A condensed milk, it's called conioni butti. Condensed milk on white bread. Wow. And also we had sugar. My favorite was white sugar sandwich. Nice. That's what we ate, because
so all you kids became diabetic?
I think it probably wasn't enough. I think you remember that this whole thing has always been about abundance, and there was a lot of stuff around, but there wasn't quite enough to get us feeling comfortable. Do you know what I mean? There was a lot of stuff around. First of all, when we were little kids, everything was rationed, and we had a ration book. Because England didn't recover very quickly from the war, not as good as in the movies, you know what I mean? So we had a ration book, and you got so much toffees and things, and so much petrol. If every kid had a petrol ration, think about it. Wow. So of course, my dad sold the petrol ration for cigarettes. People traded, and so we were poor in that way, not hungry, but poor. So because there wasn't an abundance of stuff around, and there was no such thing as a credit card and everything. So if you wanted something, you had to hang on. And so, to be in a band, we'd get paid, and sometimes we'd make enough. I remember we played at the Urmston Football Club, which is where I saw the Beatles live for the first time. Oh, wow. But we played the Hermits Football Club, and we got paid £4. And when we paid the petrol and the driver, we didn't have enough to pay each other. but we went to a fish and chip shop as a treat, but we only bought chips. We didn't have enough to fish. That was a big deal. So we all looked at each other and said, we're now professional musicians.
We made it. Yeah.
No fish, but we do have chips.
Yeah.
Sugar sandwiches are right down the line. That's for sure.
Yeah, we came up hard. It was always fun, but luckily young people have a lot of resilience. We would get in the van. We spent 3 years kind of living in a van.
So
You know,
you
we
had a van.
van.
Were you
Had a-
old enough to drive at this time?
No, but sometimes I was the only one who was sober and did. You know, there was nothing right. We would the whole of the focus was going to work on the stage and setting up the gear, and we did everything ourselves, and then taking it down and then dropping each person at home. I live with my grandparents, so I could show up anytime because, as you know, grandparents, they're probably old and they're deaf. And you could do a 45-minute set in the living room and they wouldn't even know.
Now,
you know, they're asleep at 9 o'clock and they get up late, you know, so
obviously they supported your music and your, Chip Habit and all that good kind of stuff. They're pretty supportive of the music career.
yeah, you know, that's the key. I think that they thought it was a hobby. You know, my grandfather was the church organ player and my grandmother was the choir mistress. And they thought all show business was kind of the same, you know what I mean? They thought that, like, when the priest was on the altar, he was doing a gig. Do you know what I mean?
Amen, brother.
And I think in my head, you know, I was an altar boy and I was good friends with, you know, all the people at the church. And because I had been in the choir, but I'd been kicked out of the choir because I tried to be the lead singer. And my grandmother had to explain, she was the leader of the choir. In those days, you called it choir mistress. And she was the leader of the choir. And she told me that I mustn't sing so loud. So she tried everything. They put me right at the back and I was the smallest and at the back, which made no sense. But I sang even louder, man. You know,
push your way through.
I was trying to lead the crew, you know what I mean? And, you know, we thought that the altar was a stage in a way, you know what I mean? That it was a show. And that became, you know, eventually I became the guy who wasn't facing the altar all the time. I was facing the audience and I was very uncomfortable. And it was just weird to sing and see the audience. And I was so skinny, I used to hide behind the microphone stand, you know. And when we got good, you know, we did so much work that we'd seen the Beatles and we knew that if you're going to be any good, you'd have to be that kind of an operation, which is, I think it's called all in America. You know what I mean? You'd have to. I found 4 guys who would quit their jobs and play in a band 100% of the time and rehearse whenever I said so. Can you believe it? I was 15 and I found 4 idiots who would do that.
Well, that's what I was going to ask.
Listen to me and listen to my ideas. You know what I mean? Oh,
So, that's actually what I was wondering. Who were these guys? Were these your friends before you started the band, or did you find them to make them?
They were not my friends. We had one common thing, was that we enjoyed the same kind of music. So everybody was in another band at some other time.
Oh.
And each of those bands turned into what became the fivesome that we were. And that's common, I think. You know, it wasn't like brothers, and it wasn't even, we didn't even go to the same school. We weren't even from the same part of town. You know, I knew Keith Hopwood, who was the guitar player in the band, but I'd never been in a band with him and I'd never met him on the street, or, you know, it was just, you know, he was just another kid in another band. And, you know, really, we got together because we had the same taste in music. You know, you had to be able to do the harmony to an Everly Brothers song to get in the band. You know, and you had to know the bridge from a Roy Orbison song, which were always complicated and complex until you learned them. And, you know, there were all those things, and you had to like Buddy Holly.
Now, let me ask you something. I mean, Herman's Hermits, okay? Now, do you call yourself Herman, or do you call yourself Peter?
I did call myself Herman for a long time, but then it started to be, I would get other jobs. I'd get like a TV show or a play on Broadway or something like that. And you couldn't say Herman. I think about it, the people, an example would be Lulu, who's an extraordinarily talented woman. And that was the wrong name for it because they couldn't say starring on Broadway or Vegas, Lulu. So it's just slowly, I'd always been Peter Noone, but I was using the pseudonym or the name Herman as the character that I was playing, Herman and the Hermits. And I signed my autograph Herman, but I signed my checks Peter Noone.
Yeah, because I've seen you on different interviews, and they would call you Herman.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Ed Sullivan called me Peter Herman Moon.
He's just covering his bases. So Herman, I mean, obviously you were kind of like the first boy band out there, aside from the Beatles. So you would actually have groupies and female followers, screaming the word Herman. It doesn't seem.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the videos. I was known as Herman, and that was my name, and people shouted at me and screamed at me.
Now, was it really true? You know how you see these excerpts of your concerts and everything, and you guys are running to the bus, and these girls are all chasing you and everything. Did that really happen?
Yeah, but I'll be honest with you. It went in this. There was a series like the Beatles did A Hard Day's Night and Help, and all they did in the movie was run away from girls. That was the plot. And then the Dave Clark Five did Catch Us If You Can. So all they did was actually taunt girls and sing Catch Us If You Can and ran away and didn't get caught. So we made a pledge amongst the band, get caught by the fit one. Let's get caught by some of the fit ones. And, to be honest, it all sounds, we did, in 1965, we did 360 concerts. So how much time do you get in there for romance?
My gosh.
So we were kind of like on the move all the time. It's hard to have any kind of relationship. I lost all my friends from school because I was gone. Remember, everybody didn't have a cell phone and text and all that stuff. We would get on a plane and we would go to Hong Kong, and then, you'd go in the hotel room and you were lucky if you could get a phone in the room and get time and be able to afford to call your mom and say you'd made it.
Good
gosh. It was a run, and the run went on for 10 years. People don't realize it, but it started, I left school and I don't think I really got myself organized. What am I going to do next year? Until about 1970.
Now, was it when you said, damn, I'm a superstar?
I was very fortunate because first of all, I was overeducated for my position, and that is important. And I had a great deal of humility. And what happened was that when I would meet me and my sister, it's a hard story to tell. My sister and I went to see the Everly Brothers in Manchester. My sister was from Liverpool. My parents lived in Liverpool. I lived in Manchester with my grandparents. And we went to see the Everly Brothers. And at the end of the show, we were not fan type people, but we happened to walk around the back door of the theatre, and there was a bus park there, a tour bus it was called, but it was just seats, no beds and things, seats. And out of the back of the stage door, it was on our way to the train station. We see all these Rolling Stones run. It goes like this. Out on the bus comes Bo Diddley. Oh, look, there's Bo Diddley. Then the Rolling Stones. Then the band, the band who play for everybody. And then the Everly Brothers came out.
Wow.
And they saw me and my sister standing there. There were other people there, mostly boys, interestingly, like the Everly Brothers. It was kind of the beginning of that bit where not just girls went to concerts. So, and they saw me and my sister, and they came over and talked to us. You know, Ella, just that friendly, it wasn't a setup at all. You know, they were just nice people. And they saw these two kids, because we were at least 10 years younger than everybody else there. So we were kids. And they went to us, you know, and they must have wondered where our mum and dad was. But our mum and dads were in university, so we were on our own.
So they thought you were
and yeah, and they were just they were kind to us. They didn't ask for my autograph, and I thought that shows you, you know, the bigger the star they are, the nicer they're going to be. And that happened to me all through my life. Every time I would meet a real star, they were more nice than I expected them to be. I hoped with all my heart that they wouldn't disappoint me, you know, but no. So I met Elvis Presley. He was funny. He made me laugh. He teased me. He punked me. He was a good guy. So, and the Beatles were kind to us. The Beatles loaned us their gear. The Beatles gave us a push, gave us a help, made fun of us, you know, part of English, being English is you have to be able to have fun taken out of you. I'm not going to tell you what it's called because it sounds rude, but punk people. Taking the mickey, it is. But, you know, and that kept me in my spot, you know, because it's like I would be on the airport in Nashville and I would see Johnny Cash, but he would shout to me, "Hello, Herman." Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Now,
so I was lucky that I was in this sort of position where, although I was kind of idolized, I still knew I was only me.
Now who is it that you saw? Because you're talking about meeting all these people that you were actually awestruck when you actually met them. Almost
everybody, to tell you the truth. I really am. You know, I'm a big fan of musicians. So, you know, when I met Roy Orbison, I have a problem. It's like Tourette's syndrome, really, that when I meet people who are famous, I accidentally sing a line of one of their songs. Oh, you're laughing. It's not funny because they're not sure if you're taking the mickey or not. You know, like, "Hello, Elvis. Where's in my baby? Love it." And then you go,
well, it must be weird when you meet a rapper, a gangster rapper.
I've never met a rapper. I've never met a rapper, so I don't know.
That's the rumor on the street right now. We heard that you're about to start another tour, but you're doing it in their gangster rap, you know, kind of manner. Yeah.
Well, you know, the closest I've got is probably second verse, same as the first. That would be called rap.
Yeah, we just got to get your bling on and, you know, get a grill and you'll be good to go.
There you go.
I heard you do a mean Danny Kaye imitation.
You know, he was a lovely guy too. See, there they go now. All my heroes, Danny Kaye and Dean Martin, we were lucky because we would be invited on their TV shows. They all wanted, like, whatever was the new flavor of the month on their TV. Remember, people had variety shows in those days, Dean. So we'd meet Dean Martin and he would invite us back to his house after the show because we were nice boys, you see. Think about it. Dean Martin wasn't going to invite a bunch of hooligans back to us, but we were kind of all suit and ties. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You know, because we were educated. We were educated. We weren't the Ramon. We were just nice boys. And it's fatal to be a nice boy, you know. You get nothing great ever happens if you're the nice boys. So we'd get invited back we went to Danny Kaye's house. He had a daughter called Dina Kaye, who was a family. We went back to Danny Kaye, to Dean Martin's house. He had a son who was in a band. Dino Martin was in a band with Desi Arnaz Jr.
Wow.
And I met one of my friends now there at that party. He was about 14. It's Jimmy Connors, the tennis player. So there we are in this world where people like us and they know that we can't just go wandering around nightclubs and things. So they invite us to their house for dinner. And if you're smart, you go to Dean Martin's house and you shut up and listen. Because they have lots of information to spread around that is useful. So, and that's what happened. And, you know, we were we were not as talented as they expected us to be, which is interesting, you know, because they thought we would be great comedians, but we were running on natural joy, really. We couldn't get,
you know, like Dean Martin in the variety show, obviously Herman's Hermits, you know, you got the music genre, but you also did so many movies and TV specials and all of that.
Even Laverne and Shirley.
I know. I mean, that's amazing.
yeah, I got married to Shirley.
Oh, wow, there you go. So which do you have a preference for? I mean, I know Herman's probably made you more money, but did you actually enjoy one or the other more than anything else?
You know, I enjoy it all, really. I'm a spoiled brat, you know, because I started out, the money to create the band that became Herman's Hermits, I made doing a TV show.
Oh,
and
yeah.
What happened was I was at Manchester School of Music because I came from a musical family who were all amateurs. Example, my father played the trombone. If there was a christening, a baptism, a funeral, whatever, we would all show up in this place called the parlor at my grandmother's house, and everybody would play an instrument and we would sing songs, mostly Irish, kind of sad songs. And as I was always ready to go to work anyway. So I got to the Manchester School of Music, and I was useless. I was not learning anything from there. You know, none of the music, I didn't really want to play that thing. And I heard some boys in another room playing a Chuck Berry song. And I said, how do I get in that class? And they said, we don't teach that kind of music here. So I went and hung out with them, and they showed me how to, if you could bar a chord, you could play all of Chuck Berry's songs. So that was the end of my musical education. If I can play a Chuck Berry song, I'm educated.
Done.
So they got me a job. They were looking for a local TV station, which was a national TV station. The BBC had now given away all their rights to the local stations. And this little station had a TV show, and I got an audition because they were looking for a 12-year-old boy.
Oh, there you go.
And I could play a 12-year-old boy until I was about 16, you know, so I had a lot of work. And so I got this job as a 12-year-old boy, and I became the son of the lead of the show. So although I didn't make many appearances, I made lots of money because I was a constant presence. Just in the background, I was the lead guy's son. So hey, what time? And I would forget my lines, and he would pick them. I learned how professionals were. Oh, and by the way, it had 28 million viewers, and it was live.
Oh my! Oh,
and I was afraid. I was so afraid. Anyway, I got it. But the money I used got me in the music business, because I used that money. I'd figured out that if you had good equipment, people think you were better than you were, and they would pay you more money if you had good equipment. Wow, look at that. They must be either he's got a rich mom and dad, or they must be good. So they must be good.
Except for the drum set that he just took off of a bus.
Nobody was watching. Where were you when first time you heard one of your songs on the radio?
I was in the Beachcomber in Bolton, which is a little club that's next to the canal in Bolton. You know, where we're from was where the British Industrial Revolution began. And by then, like 1964, it was over. The Industrial Revolution was over in England, you know. Anyway, so, and this little canal, they used to take coal down this canal to wherever they took it. I have no idea. I'm sure it wasn't Germany, but I knew they took coal down the canal. So we were playing, and we'd made the record. And although we felt just the idea of having a record was set you into this new stratosphere. I don't know if you can imagine it. Just all our friends were trying to make records, and all the really good bands had been signed and had made records. And a lot of them hadn't been hits or ever heard on the radio. And we'd made a record, and we thought, can you imagine if this gets on the radio? You know, it was like, could you imagine? Because we knew our mum would order a copy, and my sister would order a copy. We'd sell a couple of hundred just with my Catholic family. So we're in this club, and it's kind of our home room, really. We had 3 home rooms. We play the Oasis in Manchester, the Cavern in Liverpool, and this place. And it's 6:30, and we're getting ready to go on stage, and we changed upstairs in the kitchen. And we're in the kitchen, and it's not open. You know, there's nobody working in the kitchen. It's just hanging clothes on cookers and stuff. You know what I mean? And
sanitary. Yeah.
There's a radio in the room, and this guy, a disc jockey called Jimmy Savile, goes, "Oh, Herman and the Hermits," and he plays the record. And here's the feeling: I'm now in the same room as Elvis Presley and the Beatles and the Four Seasons and Conway Twitty, and you'd list all these people that you've grew up listening on the radio, and now you're with them in a room.
Now, you know, we get a lot of people that's been asking for us to get you on. We actually had this one guy, he said that when he saw you guys in Linford Hall.
Yeah.
He said he actually hung out with you guys. You guys were playing with Freddie and the Dreamers.
We knew Freddie and the Dreamers, but where was this Linford Hall?
I don't know. That's what he said. His name is Steve Sims. He said he was in the military back then, and he actually had hung out with you guys for a little bit. He was so excited.
Well, that would be. We did hang out lots. There was a thing in England called the pub. And we would hang out there.
He said you're the biggest jerk he's ever met in his life.
You know, because you could. England is a very small country. All the people in the business knew each other and what everybody was doing. And most of them were very kind to each other. You know, there was this sort of, it was like a plumber's reunion, really, every day. So we all had one common thing, you know, which was the music. That was, we'd spend a lot of time talking to other people about music. And, you know, we knew Freddie and the Dreamers because the drummer, see how small the world is. The drummer from Freddie and the Dreamers went to my school, which was St. Bede's College for Naughty Boys. And,
oh, God.
So he was there as well. And Bernie Dwyer. And in the corridor of the school, there was a thing called Our Lady's Corridor. And it had pictures from the beginning of the school, which I think had begun in Bonn, in Germany, Bonn, Germany. And we had a sister school with a German school, and we were all these boys, St. Bede's boys. And you would walk along this corridor, and there were hundreds of years of those pictures, those long pictures of the schoolboys, right? And you could go along, and people would spend hours there going, you know, shit, look, there's my dad. You know, if this is me, there's my dad, there's my Uncle Bernard. And my Uncle Bernard would be standing behind me because he was a priest at that school, you see, teacher and a priest. So it was all this stuff. And you go and look here, look, 1951. Look, there's Bernie Dwyer. He's the drummer in the Freddie and the Dreamers. And of course, when you'd go on the road, and remember, everybody was always on the road. And it's a small road in England. There's only one road. It really was, you know, one north and south road. And there was a thing called a transport cafe. And we would all, at 1 o'clock in the morning, there's some lorry drivers around. There's no booze and no drugs, remember. This is a different time. A different time. Everybody was safe. So there was no booze and no drugs. And you would go into a transport cafe and get a cup of tea or some hot sort of oxo stock, beef stock or something. There was no, we were working. It wasn't champagne and caviar. This was like working people. And the ones, interestingly, the ones that I'm talking about that would be sitting in that transport cafe at 1 o'clock and drinking Oxo and Bovril and all that stuff, they're still alive. The ones who went out dancing, they're all gone.
Now, let me ask you something. If you could look, you've had such a fantastic career, and it's still going on because you're playing Arkansas in Hot Springs, so you know you'll reach the pinnacle. Now, if you could look back over your career, and that you could change one thing, what would you do, if any?
I think I'd be about 6 inches taller. You know,
a little bit faster from the women chasing me.
You know, I'm getting on a bit now. You know, I'm 74, and I figure I've got 10 good more years, because I'm looking at Mick Jagger, and I'm going, he'll still be okay. I'm a lot younger than him, so if he's still going, I know I got 10 more years, right? So I think I've been dealt a really good hand all along. You know that. I mean, I've wasted a lot of time when I should have. You know, the regret thing. You know, if I should have said yes that time. I should have recorded that song and all that stuff. But as a general picture, I've been a lucky little, persistent little you-know-what for a long, long time. Because when it's at the bottom of the thing, you know, when you're almost ready to quit, you get the Laverne and Shirley show. Do you know what I mean?
So is there anything left on your bucket list that you haven't had an opportunity to do yet?
I know, and now you've been on our show, so that's one of them. So.
Yeah, right.
I was going to list this, but now I've just scratched that. You know, there's lots of things I want to do, which is pretty pathetic, really. You know, I'd like to play the modern major. I'd like to play the old man in some of those musicals, because they're the best parts. You know, the leading man role is all wimpy, I love you, and all that. When the old guy gets to sing, you know,
I've never heard that
modern major general. Like that. And my career in movies was, I always played the same part. I was this Englishman who came to America, and in the first one, I fell in love with Connie Francis, which is easy, a lovely lady, easy to fall in love with. The second one, I was this English musician, and I came to America, and I fell in love with Shelley Fabares. Easy.
Wow, yeah.
The next one we made in England, and it was called Mrs. Brown, You Got a Lovely Daughter. And it was kind of a spoof on the song, and Mrs. Brown was a dog.
And he fell in love with the dog.
Exactly. So I fell in love with the dog, which was not good. In retrospect, I wish I'd have had Hayley Mills or something in the movie.
Now,
or Bridget Bardot, you know.
Have you done any soundtrack work for major motion pictures?
Yeah, they were made by MGM. It was part of our record deal. MGM had a movie company and a record company. And, you know, I think even Roy Orbison got a picture. He made a motion picture. Oh, wow. I mean, and it was called The Fastest Guitar in the West.
Get out of here, really?
I'm sure it's worth seeing. I mean, I've seen it, okay? And it isn't the best script you've ever... It's not the best script.
So,
you know what I mean.
See, now you're coming down to Oaklawn. You're going to be playing in Oaklawn in Hot Springs.
Yeah.
You know about that, right? And so are you looking forward to that?
Absolutely. Of course, I've been there before, you know, so you're talking to me like I'm a neophyte, but I've been around. I've been to Hot Springs, and I've been to Little Rock. I've been everywhere. I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere.
Yeah. What we're going to do is after the show, we'd like to hang out with you for a little bit and, you know, do a photo op. You think that's going to be possible?
Absolutely. If this COVID thing is over by then, you know, what's been happening is wherever we play, they've banned all sort of human interaction.
Right. Yeah, right,
you know, so
okay.
We stay backstage, we go on the stage, and then they pick us up and take us back to the airport. Get lost.
Well, we just want to say thanks for taking the time. It's not like you have anything.
Well, come and say hello there. If it's possible, you guys should come and say hello. You look like nice guys. Just shows you how looks can fool you.
Yeah, we're good actors. That's what it is.
We went on Dean Martin, though. He didn't take us back to his house, but
yeah.
But yeah, we'll get with Jana, I guess, and let her know.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, great.
Well, just keep we're all doing.
Gonna tell you
down to what are you doing? About 165 shows now, or 150?
You know, my problem is Jana's good because I just say yes to everything, and then it doesn't happen, and people are disappointed. And what you've got to do in this world is make sure you don't disappoint anybody. You know, if I'd have met Elvis Presley and he hadn't been a great guy, I would have been a thing called disappointed. And my father would always say, the worst thing you can do, doesn't matter what business you're in. But if you disappoint somebody, there's no recovery from that. Like if you're a butcher and you give somebody a piece of meat and they're not happy with the piece of meat and they're disappointed, they're gone.
Yep.
I tell you, you haven't disappointed us. This has been fantastic. When you talk about you being one of the nicest guys, you weren't lying.
I got my Manchester United.
Hey, everybody,
T-shirt.
hope you enjoyed that. Peter Noone is such a really nice guy, and I appreciate him taking time out to talk with us. And he's going to be in concert down here in Hot Springs coming up next month. So be sure to check it out. Hope you enjoyed that. We're going to bring you a lot more special interviews coming up in the near future. But we just hope you enjoyed Peter Noone from Herman's Hermits. So stay tuned. Bye-bye from Arkansas Showcase Radio.com show. This is Roy Doyle saying, Avita Zane. Bye-bye.